everybody, and welcome to the Macaw Podcast Universe. My name is Micah Macaw.
My name's Jordan Macaw. We have to talk really fast because it's The Flash. This is the podcast that exists to prove people wrong when they say no sequels are better than the originals.
And so right now we are catching up on all the movies that we missed because we were on...
We had a baby.
Yes.
2 jabrones and a baby.
Yes.
That's us.
And so we even set up the schedule because the due date for the baby was July 2nd.
First. Second?
It was 2nd.
I thought it was the first.
But we set this up because we actually technically could have seen this movie before, because I think it was like June 16th or something like that.
We were like, oh, I don't think I can make it. I'm going to have a baby.
Yeah. And so we didn't go and see this movie.
Yeah.
And I have been dreading watching this.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I like least in movies is seeing Ezra Miller.
Mm-hmm.
And then seeing Ezra Miller play The Flash, like it even less than other Ezra Miller things. So I was not looking forward to this movie.
I will say, though, you are on Ezra Miller. Like, they are your guilty pleasure of a train wreck. Because you were like constantly...
I am constantly checking the news.
What else is happening.
I don't really check anymore, actually.
Okay.
But you know what I think? Because now that this movie's out, I think a lot of it was I was just kind of curious, what the heck is DC gonna do?
Yeah.
Because there was this period of like 6+ months where there were actually reports that they were considering like not releasing this movie.
Yeah.
Which after watching it, I think that probably would have been a better decision, in all honesty.
Yeah. But
because they could have just taken a huge tax
I will say
write-off.
This movie, let me just get it right off the bat.
Yeah.
This movie is terrible, but it was highly entertaining.
Yes.
So you have terrible, that's a snooze fest, see Underworld series, any movie from that, take your pick. Or you watch this and it's just, you're endlessly fascinated by what decisions were made here, what decisions weren't made, and at what point of the several points did they just throw up their hands and just kept going to finish it?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
This movie, I think, is like, if it wasn't connected to, like a larger franchise and stuff, this seems like a midnight movie.
Yeah.
Like you go to the theater, you bring little babies and you throw them at the screen and stuff like that. And you like scream and laugh and like quote the lines that are terrible and stuff. Because this movie was so bad. It was like, did Tommy Wiseau direct this or something like that?
Well, let's not stoop to that level, but
I think it's like, it's on that caliber.
You mean in terms of entertainment value? Yeah, it was pretty entertaining. I will say though, because don't know anything about The Flash, but I guess I think it's safe.
Well, he is fast.
I do know that.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's safe to assume that this is like the Flash story. This is the run.
I think it's the most famous. Yeah.
And it is, I gotta say, inherently good. So the movie was terrible. It was a train wreck. It was so fun to watch. But the story was just interesting enough that the whole time I was like, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next?
Sure.
What about next? And they didn't answer all my questions.
No.
But
I mean, don't get us wrong, folks. This movie is bad.
It's terrible, but
I think
I see the potential because the story is a classic for comic books.
Compared to, like, I would watch this over Black Adam. I would watch it over Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania.
Oh,
and Ant-Man and the Wasp.
I actually think this is a better movie than Quantumania.
This is a better movie than Quantumania.
It straight up is better. And this movie's really bad.
Yeah.
Straight up,
I'd watch it
crazy enough. This movie looks better than Quantumania, and this movie looks bad.
Yeah.
I would rather watch this
Birds of Prey, I'd watch it over.
Yeah.
Although I will say objectively, Birds of Prey is a better movie.
Yeah.
Way better.
Yeah.
Like, miles better. But I'd watch this any day over
boring. It.
Yeah. Original Suicide Squad, I'd watch this over it. Like, actually, most of the Snyder stuff, I'd rather watch this movie.
Yeah.
But it is so terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it is like baffling. It's crazy to watch. And I'm not talking about like maybe one sequence or what. It's crazy to watch every single scene in this movie and think someone who makes movies thought, that's good. Let's move on to the next scene. Like a director thought that was good. And there's a lot at play that we're going to talk about. But this is crazy. And what blows my mind, this has been a great year for movies. But this movie is not even my bottom movie of the year.
What is your bottom movie?
My bottom movie is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Okay.
Then right above that is Elemental.
Okay.
And then above that is Haunted Mansion.
Okay.
And then I would put The Flash.
Yeah, I'd be there too. But I will say with this movie,
yeah,
it got a few genuine laughs for me.
There were a couple of laughs. There were
a few that were like that was funny. I'm into that.
Yeah.
So it was a fascinating movie.
Very, very fascinating. It's one of those things that I almost like would encourage everyone to watch, or like watch through the first sequence of the movie
at least. Yeah.
And if you were like, oh, this is the kind of gonzo energy I'd like right now, then watch the rest of the movie because it won't let up.
Yeah.
If you're like, no, I really can't handle this, then don't watch it anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, although it never quite tops the baby scene.
No.
Because that was
it can't.
That floored me.
Yeah.
So contextually here, before we get going, because we have to go back to the 80s to talk about this movie. The Flash, from my estimation, my view, you have like Superman and Batman probably Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man sharing like the top tier of like everyone in the world knows who they are. And if you talk to someone and say, who's Batman, they're going to know stuff about him, Superman and Spider-Man. I think they're all kind of like the A+++ tier. And I think, even though I have like, I've never read a Flash comic, none of that, I think Flash is probably like right underneath them. Flash is so famous and so well known, and probably Aquaman is in that zone as well, and Wonder Woman. I think they're all three kind of like A-. Everybody knows who those characters are because it's such a simple idea. It's like you're a kid and you're like, what if I was fast? You're the Flash. Great. You're on board. So I think it would be really frustrating if you were a diehard Flash fan and this was the movie you got.
Is the show good? Do you know, do people like the show?
People really like the show.
Well, at least they have something.
Yeah. I think a lot of people think that the show ran out of steam.
Oh, okay.
But has some pretty great scenes and episodes. So, in the 1980s, Warner Brothers hires Jeff Loeb to make a screenplay for a Flash movie. Then flash forward to 2004.
Flash forward.
And they hire David S. Goyer to write and direct.
Everyone's obsessed with this guy in this town.
And he wants Ryan Reynolds to do it.
No.
After he works with him on Blade Trinity, which we talked about this year.
Bad choice.
In 2007, he leaves the project.
Okay.
Then Sean Levy, the director of Free Guy, he oversees a new draft of the movie. And while he's doing that, George Miller starts working on this movie called Justice League Mortal, which there's this like YouTube video where someone like read the script and like figured out as much as they could about it. And it sounded like it would have been a really cool movie. I think it started at a funeral. And all the like Justice League comes in, and then it like shows the whole movie, and then at the end you find out that Flash, like I think it's Flash, like sacrificed himself to save everybody.
I think I've heard of this.
And they were at his funeral.
Yeah.
Sounds cool. Then Sean Levy leaves this movie because he's got scheduling conflicts for his movie Night at the Museum: Battle of the Smithsonian.
Oh, but of course.
And nothing comes of the George Miller movie. Then David Dobbin takes over to develop a movie that's supposed to be a spin-off of the Justice League Mortal movie. And they're like, 2008 release date, let's go. Then something called the writer's strike happens. And that eventually dies after the writer's strike.
Yeah.
2010, the writers of the much maligned Green Lantern movie are hired to make a new movie.
Sounds like a bad idea.
Right. And then in 2013, Man of Steel comes out. Okay. And it's like, now we have a shared universe, so we're scrapping everything.
Yeah.
Because now the Flash will be in our shared universe. So they're like, they announced way back then, they're like, there will be a Flash movie in 2016.
Okay.
So that is like this iteration. So from here on out, we're editing this iteration, and it took them this long to get to this movie. Then they announce like officially they're like, okay, it's going to be March 23rd, 2018. That's the movie. That's when it's coming out. And they say, James Wan, do you want to make this movie or do you want to make Aquaman? And he says, Aquaman.
Thank you.
And then in 2015,
we need Orm, and he knew that.
And this is where it gets sad because this is the what could have been.
Yeah.
2 people start working on a treatment for this movie.
Not Phil Lord and Chris Miller.
Phil Lord and Chris Miller start working on a treatment, and then they go, and this is what's sad. They go, actually, we're going to work on Solo instead.
Ooh.
Yeah, and then of course we all know they get fired from that movie.
Yeah.
Then they have Seth Grahame-Smith write and direct the Lord and Miller treatment, and this would have been his directorial debut. Now, you might be saying, who's Seth Grahame-Smith? But I feel like I've talked about him in one of my meetings at work. He's the writer of Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer.
One of my meetings at work?
Because he's an author.
Oh, okay.
Making a joke.
Oh, okay.
So this would have been his first movie.
Wow, that's interesting.
I know.
How come they haven't made that yet? Because isn't that book really famous?
Well, they did make the Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, so where's the Pride and Prejudice and Zombies?
I don't think a single person liked the Abraham Slayer one, so I don't think
How
they made
is
any
that
more.
Oh, you said that's the same author?
Yeah.
You just said? Oh, okay. Okay.
Then he leaves the project in April of 2016 over creative differences. And they hire Rick Famuyiwa, who's the director of Dope,
Yeah.
to direct. And the movie's taken a while, so they give the release date to the Tomb Raider movie that bombed pretty bad.
Just get on with it. When is this movie coming out?
And he revises the script, and then he leaves October 2016 over creative difference. Yeah, you know. And that was supposed to be a planned March shoot in 2017. So,
guys, I got bad news about what's up ahead. Get to pump this thing out.
So then the film gets put on hold, and Ezra starts working on Crimes of the Double Entendre. And that's a joke I wrote because Ezra Miller is going to work on a bunch of real-life crimes while also working on the movie Crimes of Grindelwald.
Yeah.
See our episode on the Secrets of Dumbledore if you want the full breakdown of all of the Ezra Miller crimes.
Oh, did we do that?
Oh, we did.
Micah is obsessed. He's obsessed with Ezra Miller. Not obsessed, but he is as fascinated with Ezra Miller as I was with Armie Hammer.
Yeah, okay.
But no one talks about him anymore.
But I think now that Flash is out, I don't really care anymore.
Yeah.
You know? Unless there's, another cult situation happening or another kidnapped, person. Anyway. So then they're like, okay, let's get, of course, Joby Harold to rewrite this. The writer of King Arthur, Legend of the Sword.
Joby.
Yeah. And they think, and I love seeing things like this because it's like, I don't think that was ever going to happen. But they're like, our top choice is Robert Zemeckis and Matthew Vaughn. And it's like, well, they could have got Matthew Vaughn for sure. And actually, after having seen Pinocchio, they probably could have got Robert Zemeckis. But they both had an express interest in the project, but it didn't really happen. Then there's Raimi turned it down, Mark Webb turned it down, Jordan Peele turned it down, and Ben Affleck turned it down.
Oh man, deprived of that version.
It's so funny because that's just not the type of movies that Ben Affleck makes.
That's probably why he turned it down. He wasn't interested in making it.
Yeah. Do you remember he was going to make The Batman, though?
I don't want to talk about that.
Okay. Well,
I don't want to talk about him.
Just quickly for the listener, they were going to make like a hard-boiled his Batman, and he was going to make it. And then it fell through, and he was like, I don't think I can do this.
No, you can't, Ben.
I think he was also going through like a lot of alcohol abuse. And so he's like, this is bad for me. And so then Matt Reeves is like, well, I also want to do a movie. And they're not connected in any way beyond they were both trying to make
okay,
Batman movies that were
like that.
Yeah, like about solving a crime. And not knowing that
a flying rat
is a penguin.
What? Is a bat. Do you know what you just said?
No. I think isn't the riddle that that they think it's the bat, but the whole time, or no, they think it's penguin. That's what it is. I got mixed up.
Calling it a flying rat. Yeah, and it's like, guys, think about it a little.
And
bit.
I just did what they did in the movie. Oh, brother. So then there's another movie of this that should have been made, and this one hurts maybe even more than the Chris Miller and Phil Lord. They hire John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein, enter into negotiations in March of 2018.
Who is this?
Oh, I don't know, the writers and directors of Game Night and Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves.
Dang.
But now, Ezra's busy with The Secrets of Dumbledore.
Yeah. So many secrets.
He had so many secrets, that Dumbledore. He had that secret where he put his little tush on the desk there. And so then, in 2019, Ezra Miller starts working with Grant Morrison, who is a comic book writer. And they both start making a new version of the movie that Daly and Goldstein are working on.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of discrepancies. I don't know for sure, but it seems like Miller and Morrison wanted something a bit darker, and Daly and Goldstein were making something more fun, which sounds like
more fun.
I mean, this movie is not very dark, so
no.
But if the studio did not take the Miller and Morrison take, there was potential for the actor to leave the film. So, this is getting out of hand.
Which could have been the best thing for them.
Yeah. So then Daly and Goldstein leave the project, and Warner Brothers chooses is it Christian or Christina? I think it's Christina Hudson, who wrote Birds of Prey, to write a new screenplay.
Okay.
And then they get Andy Muschietti, the director of It and It Chapter 2, and they're expected to start filming this movie in 2021. And then COVID happens, and they have to push filming, and then they're eventually able to film, and then I just remember reading so many times that it was like reshoots. I mean, they probably had 4 or 5 rounds of reshoots, which couple rounds of reshoots, not too uncommon these days, but once you start getting 3, 4, 5, it's why I trust James Wan, but I am really scared about Aquaman, because they've done like 5 rounds of reshoots on that. And it seems like Warner Brothers is like, we don't even want to put this out. Like, we're scared to put this out. So
we got Orm.
I know, we do have Orm. So, and then there's like all this talk of like, this is going to reset the DCEU, because at this point, everyone's done with the DCEU. There's like you have this weird dichotomy where it's like, you have Snyder fans who only want Zack Snyder to run everything and do everything. Then you have like the majority of people who don't care that much about it or even know about it, but they don't even agree on what they dislike about the universe. So they're just like, this will be the reset, because we're adapting Flashpoint, which is what they did in the comics. It was kind of like a reset for comics. So, there's big talk of that, which it's funny because this movie kind of doesn't even do that, even though they were like saying that was going to be what this movie was. Then they talk to Fisher, who is the actor who plays Cyborg, and he says, I'm not going to do any movie where the DC president Walter Hamada is working. Because remember, he was basically abused on the set of Justice League by Joss Whedon. So then the final writing credits are revealed to be Hodson received screenplay credit, Daly, Goldstein, and Harold received screen story credit, and off-screen credit for additional writing material went to Rebecca Drysdale, Famuyiwa, Graham Smith, Johns, Lord, Christopher Miller, Ezra Miller, Morrison, and co-writer Adam Stitzel. That's like the credited writers. And in May, Deadline...
Do people get paid for all of this?
I think they get a little pay, yeah.
Jeez.
But it is crazy because Daly and Goldstein are in the credits of this movie.
Yeah.
Like story by, and it's like, but they would have done good. Like I feel like it's not fair that their names are in the credits of this movie. But the Hollywood Reporter reported that there was an unspecified high-profile comic book film that would be released in 2023, and its script had been submitted to WGA, and it had a total of 45 writers throughout its development. And so most people assume it's this movie.
How is that different, though? Because I know this is a lot, it's very storied, but like most of these comic book movies, they've been trying to make since the 70s, the 90s, the 80s. And this one just has a more like through line.
I think what's different about this is even that amount of writers I mentioned that are like for sure, which is
a lot.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 writers. It's like, that's just a lot because they are getting credit. So it means stuff that they have is in the movie. stuff that they wrote is in the movie. Because I'm sure like George Miller isn't one of the 45 writers.
Yeah.
Because his draft and version is not in this movie.
Yeah.
It's like they restarted.
Yeah.
Probably even like the David S. Goyer stuff is like totally out of this. So I think that's what makes it different and unique.
Okay.
So then Ezra has a big year for 2022, and they keep pushing the movie. And I remember this article coming out where they were kind of saying, do we do an interview with Ezra and kind of clear everything up and say, we need mental, issue, like we're going through mental stuff and we need to go to recovery, or do we push the movie again, or do we cancel the movie? And that's all like insider reporting. So then Miller apologizes and says that they're seeking treatment. They're still trying to figure out if they're going to release this movie, what they're going to do. I don't know if you remember this.
It's tough. They spent so much money on it.
I know that
like
is.
You just dump it.
Yeah. But
to dump it meaning release it.
Right.
And make some kind of money,
Yeah, exactly. But what's crazy is, do you remember that like at the beginning of 2022, there was that trailer for like DC movies that would play, and it showed like the Batman and some scenes from Black Adam.
Yeah.
But remember, it showed the Flash, and it was like basically saying like this year's like the year for DC, and then this movie comes out like 18 months after we saw that first footage of the Flash.
Oh yeah.
Which I had totally forgotten about. Let me make one little note here. So, so it's just like this movie is stuck. And then you have this change of heads where now James Gunn and Peter Safran are now running DC. And now there's this question of like, well, what's going to happen to the DC movies? And they say, oh, this is going to be like the jumping off point. And this will help set up, our new universe. Having now watched it, it's like, it absolutely doesn't. And they've come out and they've now said like, there's going to be no returning Snyder actors. Like Superman Legacy is the start. Like the slate is wiped clean. This failed basically. And it's great for us because when we finish Aquaman, we will be done with the DC universe and we will close the book. We might have to get like a sound effect or like do something on that episode that's
close
like,
a book and the mic.
Yeah. But yeah. So this movie had like a different ending that effectively like made Keaton the Batman. And Ben Affleck, it was gone. They shot scenes with Cavill that were cut.
Oh, wow.
They shot scenes with Godot that were cut.
Where is he getting that?
It's in the back. Gilmore keeps getting Talia's toys, and he wants to play with them.
Can you blame him?
No. And then we're getting close to this movie. So there's just lots of cuts, lots of reshoots. We're getting close to this movie coming out. And then Tom Cruise, the savior of last year's cinema.
Yeah.
He was invited to, like, they came to his house and they showed him this movie, like, privately. And he said it was among the greatest superhero movies. No, I'm sorry. James Gunn said this was among the greatest superhero movies of all time, which hurts your reputation a little bit there, James Gunn.
He has to say that, though.
He kind of does, yes. And then,
just like Tom Cruise had to say what you're about to say because they paid him.
Yeah, Cruise reached out to Machete and said...
Machete?
Andy Machete, the director. Muschietti.
Oh, okay. It's just Machete.
Machete. And he said, this is everything you want in a movie, and this is the kind of movie we need right now.
Well, in a way, it did scratch an itch.
And then Stephen King, this is the saddest one for me. Stephen King tweeted, I got an advanced screening of The Flash today. As a rule, I don't care a lot for superhero movies, but this one is special. It's heartfelt, funny, and eye-popping. I loved it. I mean, I hope it was able to, like, fund, like a yacht that he wanted to buy or something.
Or he donated it to charity or something.
Yeah, because there was just this weird, like, build since January where it's like, all the heads of Warner Brothers are saying this is potentially, like, not just the best superhero movie, but this is, like, the best movie some of these guys have ever seen, And the closer we were getting and the more people were saying, I was like, oh, this movie might be like one of the worst movies ever made because they were trying so hard.
But this was also what was piquing my interest of seeing this movie.
Yeah.
It got me interested. It worked.
Yeah, I mean, I was interested out of,
More
like watch it through your hands kind of a thing.
Okay.
But turns out that the movie has come out on a $200 million budget.
Okay.
Domestically, it made 108, and worldwide, it made 266.
Okay.
It's a projected $200 million loss for Warner Brothers. One of the biggest bombs of all time.
Yeah.
Which I love because Across the Spider-Verse came out a week or 2 weeks earlier and cleaned up. And that's an animated movie. And it's not... The animated movies don't usually make... Well, actually, animated movies make a lot. But, like, the original Spider-Verse movie was a huge hit, but it didn't make, like, Guardians of the Galaxy kind of money.
Yeah.
And this movie did. And it's about a multiverse, and it has a lot of heart, and it's probably still my favorite movie of the year. And yet, like, a multiverse movie comes out, like, 2 weeks later, and everyone's like, yeah, we'll just go see Spider-Verse again. It just felt like this year was the year people finally took a stand where they're like, oh, yeah, Ant-Man sucks. I won't see it. Mm-hmm. Shazam sucks. Okay, I won't see it. Guardians is good. Let's go see it. Let's go see it again. Let's go see it again.
Although Shazam was pretty good.
Yeah, no, I mean, I
know,
like Shazam,
I know.
But people did not go and see movies out of loyalty anymore. Mm-hmm. They were like, no. And even Killers of the Flower Moon is doing really well. And it's 3.5 hours. Oppenheimer did amazing. It's 3 hours. People are like, I want to go see a movie that's good.
Yep.
And they're not seeing bad movies anymore.
Yep.
It's amazing. So having said all of that, I've talked about most of the people who have made it, but there's also the music was this Benjamin Wallfish, who did Shazam, cinematographer Henry Brom, who did Guardians 3 and 2 and Suicide Squad, The Suicide Squad. And that's...
Both Suicide Squads?
Just The Suicide Squad, the James Gunn movie. And that is all that I have on The Flash. Did you have any questions? Because I feel like I may have missed something.
Probably,
but I'm not sure.
But I gotta be honest, holding a baby while recording is next to impossible. So,
right.
I don't know what my questions are at this time.
Well, the movie came out June 16th, and then we can go over some actors.
Great.
Hit me with them actors.
Okay, so really, we have Sasha Calle or Kaye. I don't know how you pronounce it. She plays Kara Zor-El. Or Supergirl?
The cousin of...
they're cousins.
Yeah, that's what she said in the movie.
Wow, she is in The Young and the Restless.
Ah.
Young Blood, Deep Cuts, Final Stop. I gotta say, don't know a single Supergirl comic, never read one, don't know anything about the character. I thought she was good.
Yeah?
I think I liked her.
Okay.
I liked her.
I don't know if it was just the movie or whatnot. I just felt like she didn't have like the gravitas of like a superhero.
Oh, I liked it.
Okay.
I liked that.
I'm not like gonna die on this hill. You know what I mean?
No. Yeah.
A part of it is like, oh, here's this random person who's never gonna be Supergirl in anything that I'm ever gonna watch. So I don't really care.
I liked it, and I liked her storyline. I'll be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll just say it.
Well, we'll talk more about the storylines coming up soon.
Ron Livingston plays Henry Allen, Barry's dad.
Yeah,
he's in Office
replaced.
Space.
Do you remember who he replaced? Who was in a scene from Justice League?
No.
A1 Billy Crudup.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Don't really care. He's in Office Space, The Conjuring adaptation, Band of Brothers, so on and so forth.
He's always good.
Yeah,
he shows up,
fine.
gets the work done.
Mary Belle Verdu plays Nora Allen, the mom. She's in Pan's Labyrinth. Y tu Mama Tambien.
Ah, yes. Now, a Quaron movie, I think.
I've not seen that.
No, we have not seen
that. We haven't?
We have not. We've not.
Okay. And then also an Elite, The Deadly Invitation, Death Roulette. A lot of this, most of it's Spanish.
Yes.
Then we have Kiersey Clemens, who plays Iris, the very forgettable journalist.
Oh, yeah.
She is in Dope, Sweetheart, Lady and the Tramp, the remake, obviously.
Yeah.
Hearts Beat Loud, whatever. She sucked. I'm sorry.
She
it
really
was
sucked.
really bad.
And it was also like sometimes they do this in movies where it just felt like you're covering like the crime beat in a big city, like you're 17.
I know. I don't buy it for
You
a
know
second.
what I mean?
Yeah. Saoirse Monica Jackson plays Patty, who's one of the like the friends or whatever.
Oh, okay.
She is in Dairy Girls.
Okay.
5 or the 5. And the other guy, Ruby Mancuso, plays Albert. He is in Rim of the World. Are these things real?
Whatever universe they live in, whatever multiverse universe they're in, they are some of the most boring and annoyingly designed characters I've seen in a while. Until we go to the alternate universe where they're like slobs, then I was like, "Oh, these actors are good."
Yeah. I agree with that.
Like they were really good, but in the the main universe, it was like, "What are we doing with these guys?"
Yeah,
it was annoying.
Yeah, I think it's also annoying. Or it's annoying in the first part of the movie because I just don't think people are really mean like this anymore.
I know.
People get bullied. I know that.
I know,
but
yeah.
like this whole like nerd guy, and they're just making they're nerds too. They work in a research lab.
I know.
They probably don't have friends either.
I know.
So it doesn't do it for me anymore. That's like we've talked about. What's one of the great things about the new Spider-Man movies?
Yeah. They like adapted it,
where
and
it's
they
like.
didn't make it the jock thing.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so there's also this one guy in this movie, what's his name? Michael Keaton.
Well, yeah, but we've covered him.
He returns, and then who's this other guy? He's Christopher Reeves is in this movie.
But he's not.
Oh yeah, and who's that other guy?
Who's
Nicolas
the woman with him?
Cage.
Who was that woman with him?
So I had to look that up because I was like, who is this? Back in the 70s or 80s or whatever, there was a Supergirl show, and that was her.
Okay.
So, but we really can't get into the cameos yet because that's the tragic last act where I think I'll really lay out some nice ranting for everybody.
Yeah.
But let's just go through this movie, right?
Yeah.
The movie begins with multiple Warner Brothers logos because it's a multiverse.
Okay.
And then we go straight to the coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
He is,
he's late for work.
Yeah.
And
the character, is late for work.
Yeah, Barry is late for work.
Yeah.
And he needs the girl to make his sandwich. It's the same girl all the time. It's got to be the specific way of a sandwich. She's not there today, screwing it up. It's kind of funny, this guy with the sandwich thing.
But the movie already, to me, felt very off.
Yeah.
But here's something that you seem to not like, but I actually think is very clever. And throughout the movie, he has a calorie burner, and like he's expending so much energy.
It just feels like a tired detail. It's just like whatever. Can't he just run fast and there's no consequences?
Yeah, I like it though, and I think the baby thing, which we'll get to. Had it been in the hands of a better director, I think this scene could have been like...
There would be no baby thing.
Well, even like let's just say they had to do the baby scene. Let's say Warner Brothers mandated it. I'm sure they didn't. I do think there is a world where that scene is like rolling in your seat funny.
Yeah.
Because it's clearly supposed to be funny.
Okay, but...
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into something that I'm just now thinking about. So
the choices that Ezra has made for this character.
No, but so Barry and Bruce have a very Peter and Tony Stark relationship.
Uh-huh.
And what doesn't work for me in this, so with the Tony and the Peter one, Peter is a high school student.
Yeah.
And he is supposed to be a high school student.
Yeah.
So I guess, you could say like Tony could have just whisked him away.
Yeah.
And he didn't have to be in high school anymore, didn't have to do all that stuff. But whatever.
Right.
He's a teenager. And this, Barry is like a 20-something.
Right.
Why does he still have to work at his dumb research job? And like, he knows who Batman is. He talks to Bruce in this movie.
Uh-huh.
And like Alfred's giving him jobs to do. Why can't he just be the Flash? Why does he have to have
I don't know.
an alter? I mean, why does he have to have like a day job?
I will tell you why. One, it's so that they can do the Batman connection with Michael Keaton later in the movie. But two, and I think more importantly, this movie is so terrified that people aren't going to like it that they need to throw you something shiny every 10 minutes.
Okay.
So they go, okay, what will make Snyder fans happy? Ben Affleck's in it. Okay, the Snyder Butler's in it. Okay, we got that.
They could have done that without him having a day job. I just don't get it.
But you know what I mean?
No, I get it. It's just like it also. Okay, so a big catalyst of this movie, his mom is murdered years and years ago, and he never found out why, and his dad's in prison for it. Well, his dad's convicted guilty of it.
Yeah.
And he's been always trying to figure out how to prove his dad's innocence, partly why he works at a research lab. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you could do all of this stuff without having a research job. Because you got Bruce Wayne at your disposal. Not that Bruce is, I don't know. It's just.
What drives him, but I do know
it is what drives him, but Bruce has the money to help.
Yeah.
I guess I'm mad at Batman.
Well, it's what's cool though is they did get Ben Affleck out of bed. He did make it to set.
Barely. He looks tired.
He did do one take.
I saw. Okay, so he, allegedly Ben Affleck's in an action scene. Allegedly.
Yeah.
And he's driving around.
I'm not convinced anyone is actually in this movie.
Ezra Miller's barely in this movie.
Yeah.
You can tell that very easily because of all the CGI berries. But he's driving around on his motorcycle, and he's obviously not wearing a cape. It looks so bad.
Yeah.
And I saw, this is something I did see.
Yeah.
That like his cape design is like sort of a blue, which harkens back to like the show with like the blue cape. The cartoon, he has a blue cape.
Okay.
And it's like, that's just to me a bad excuse for why it looked so terrible.
Yeah, and it looked black. It looked blue.
Gray. So it's like either make it blue or make it black. Don't do gray.
Well, okay. We here's the thing. We can't get into Batman's design because from Batman v Superman, it's a terrible design.
It's terrible design. It's a terrible casting.
What? I don't actually dislike Ben Affleck. I really enjoyed his movie Air earlier this year. But he has
no business being here.
When you put on the cowl, it just doesn't look right.
No.
His chin is all wrong for Batman.
Yeah.
So
okay, but whatever. He's talking to Alfred like on the phone, basically, in the coffee shop. And I guess Alfred tells him you gotta go to Gotham and do something because Bruce can't.
Yeah.
Or something.
And so he gets ready to do the Flash, and he gets in this crazy position that I don't like to look at.
No.
And then it says the Flash, and then some people go, "Oh my gosh, the Flash! It's you!"
I liked this. I thought it was funny.
Okay. And then it's like paparazzi to the Flash, and he tries to get
a bunch of teenagers, and he's like, "Is that a candy bar? Can I have some of it?" And the girl kisses it and throws it.
Oh, I didn't notice she kissed it.
Thought it was funny.
And it hits him in the head because he looks away, and then it does the title card again. Okay. For me, you're off to a pretty bad start to this movie. But again, I do think that Ezra is an actor that, but at least with the Flash, they really think that they're a funny actor, and I really don't think that's Ezra's strong suit.
Does not work. Bad casting all around.
I would say probably 60% of the jokes in this movie with just a different actor would land like pretty well.
I agree with that.
But then there's also this quality where it's like, it's weird to just laugh at someone saying, "I don't want to hurt people," when you know that they punched someone in Sweden. You know what I mean? There's a weird like, you're a superhero, like you have like a compound that people live on
with babies with bullets in their mouth.
Yeah, like this isn't. I did see like a Letterboxd review where someone made a joke about how that was like the funniest line in the movie.
So he goes to Gotham, where I guess there's like a sinkhole happening. I kind of missed the beginning of this.
Yeah, I missed that
lack
too.
of listening.
Yeah.
But the hospital is gonna go down in the sinkhole, and it's a terrible thing. And I guess in this skyscraper of a hospital, they have the babies ward or the neonatal care on like the 50th floor of this building.
Yeah.
Smart.
So the building is collapsing.
Yeah.
And the babies fly out and break through.
And
this woman chucks a baby as she falls out of the building.
You see one of the worst CGI, some of the worst VFX stuff I've ever seen in a long time.
Now, pause. I just want to say the visual effects artist for this movie, like one of them, came out with like a TikTok or something like that. And he said, here's the thing. Right now, there is such a high demand of VFX that we are put under conditions where you have to work all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There's like, you're working overtime, and if you don't get it done early, you lose the contract.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone's in this impossible position where everyone's competing with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And studios like Marvel and DC are saying, we need you to do 2,500 effect shots. And they literally don't have the time. And if they want to spend the time, they get fired.
Mm-hmm.
So I do not blame the VFX artist for this movie looking like complete, I'll say it, poop.
Mm-hmm.
But it is one of the worst VFX, like, in years. Years.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
It was jaw-dropping. You have knives falling down at babies.
Scalpels,
another baby that gets put into a microwave. You have other babies with, like, heavy objects falling on them, or
and it's
falling
all
50 stories
in slow motion
because it's the Flash.
Yeah, and so Flash is running around, and see, this is where you go, okay, so this is supposed to be a joke, because folks, I wish you could have seen me. I got up on all fours and leaned forward onto the chase on our couch and was staring at the screen with my mouth agape. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And these babies are falling, and they look like PS2 cutscenes. And what's going on is Flash gets up there. And this is where I'm saying, like, this scene could work, actually, because it's crazy and ridiculous. You're worried about the babies. And then he looks around and sees a vending machine and breaks open the vending machine and eats a bunch of food and then saves them because he's going to run out of his calories. But they play it like a comedic moment. I think It 1 is a funny movie. I think It 2 isn't funny at all. I think Andy Muschietti's not the best comedic director.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, like, that joke, I think of James Gunn doing this exact scene and laughing so hard I'm crying.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is like what the show...
Babies, though.
Oh, yeah, I don't think Babies was the right move.
No. The only way it would work if it was James Gunn, let's say it was a Guardians thing, it would be on a planet of aliens, and they don't necessarily look like they are babies, but they don't look like humans, and I think it would be less, like, traumatic to watch.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm speaking as someone who now has a baby. I know that, but I don't like that.
No, I don't either.
I think it's a bad choice.
I think it's a bad choice.
I think you can still do it just with people and not babies.
Yeah.
Or with animals. Well, no, never mind. I don't think you can do it. It's better with animals.
But so he, like, saves all of them and brings them down. And I just couldn't even believe it. And I go, Jordan, there's something weird about his suit. And I watch VFX artists react on YouTube, and they pointed out, and you could see behind the scenes footage, basically the suit is all, like, body replaced, like, in most of the scenes.
What does that mean? What do you mean by that?
It means that they are, like, CGing over his body, much like they do in Marvel, with like costumes and stuff like that. But they're CGing over the Flash's body. But they don't have the time to do it right, so the body is shifting, and there's certain scenes where the head proportion is incorrect as well. And so, it truly is crazy how bad this looks.
Yeah.
And at this point, I was kind of like, I think I can watch this movie. Like, this is really bad.
It was wild.
Then it goes to, like, this car chase. Batman shows up. I'm not convinced that anything is real in the movie at this point, because everything looks insane.
Yep.
And Batman is defying the laws of physics in ways that hurt to look at and are not fun. And then they stop these bad guys.
Oh, yeah, Wonder Woman shows up.
And then Wonder Woman shows up.
She, like, saves them or something, and then her and
she does the
Bruce
classic,
are, like, making eyes at each other.
Yeah, she does the classic thing whenever it's not her movie and it's directed by a man. She stands there and raises an eyebrow and is like, hey. And that's kind of it.
Yeah.
And then she leaves because they're hanging out with the lasso of truth.
Yeah, and then Barry says something about sex that didn't land.
He said, I know sex exists, but I've never experienced it.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then he makes it back in time to get a sandwich and be late to work, to which he is berated by his boss. And
she loves that book.
I know.
She just wants to eat that book.
I know.
Folks, she's having fun right now.
She's starting to cry.
Oh, she is? Okay. So after all this nonsense and the bad Gal Gadot cameo and the bad Batman cameo, do we have anything else? Do we have anything else we want to say about Ben Affleck Batman? Because it's probably the last time we're going to see him.
No, it's not. We see him later in an alley.
With
Barry.
You're right. Well, this is the last time we see Ben Affleck Batman, though. Not Bruce Wayne.
It's a travesty.
Yeah, I think we look back. We've had quite a few Batmen.
I think it's a bad Halloween costume.
And I do think Ben Affleck ranks as the worst.
Yeah, easily.
I think Kilmer beats him, and I think Clooney beats him pretty easy.
Oh, Clooney beats him in a landslide. He's wonderful as Batman. Kilmer does better than him, and Kilmer sucked.
Yeah. So then we have the scene. You know, we've had the big action scene. So now, what's the Flash up to? What's Barry Allen doing?
So Barry is, like we said, the research thing, and
motivated to study and make sure criminals are not put in jail when they shouldn't be put in jail.
Yeah. So that's when he runs into Iris, his old flame.
Yeah.
He wishes she was his old flame. Gosh, she's bad. But also the character is written terribly.
Yeah.
But she's like, off the record, how are you actually doing? Blah, 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 blah. And then we get into, I think he's at home and he talks to his dad.
Yeah.
His dad has an appeal tomorrow, his appeal case or something.
Yeah.
And talking to his dad about it, we learned that there's some like footage of him at the grocery store the day of the murder, but he doesn't look up.
Yeah, he never looks up. And they were able to restore it to HD widescreen definition and everything, even though it happened before they had those in cameras.
I need to ask again.
Yes.
Wait, we're just talking about anything now, right?
Yes.
We don't know who killed his mom.
No.
Can we look at this up?
Yeah. Why don't you talk about that flashback and I'll look up
that flashback.
Oh wow, yeah.
So the day that it happened, he was a kid. He was at home with his mom. I think it was a Sunday. She was making her Sunday meal that always uses tomatoes, and she needed the dad to go get another can because she didn't buy enough. And so he goes, and then basically out of nowhere, she is on the floor, stabbed in the chest with a knife.
Yeah.
And the dad just tells him to call 911.
Right. And you'd think that that'd be a big reveal that they'd use in the movie.
I think they forgot.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. During an interview with the Playlist, the Flash director Andy Muschietti discussed the villains he would like to explore in a potential sequel. Although the killer was never shown on screen, Muschietti has now described Reverse Flash as the murderer of Barry's mom, even suggesting he would likely be the logical villain for The Flash 2. Well, here's his quote. Well, Reverse Flash is the elephant in the room, right? It feels like you can't make another movie without addressing the one that, in all accounts, is the murder of Barry's mom. So it feels like the big villain.
Huh?
Oh, maybe. Oh, okay. I think Reverse Flash is in the comics. I was thinking Reverse Flash was
not that one that we get in this movie.
Yeah.
What's Reverse Flash?
The 2011 comic book that redefined Barry Allen's mythos and rebooted the DC universe ahead of the New 52 retcon Professor Zoom as the murderer of Nora Allen, the Reverse Flash, who became the Flash's greatest foe in the future. Went back in time and killed Barry Allen's mom.
Okay.
So they decide, but it's just crazy to like sink your whole heart into this movie, and then, I mean, on the one hand, it is. If it was better written, it is kind of interesting that it's like, no, I'm not going to stop the murderer. I'm just going to prevent it from happening, or like and then by the end, it's like I'm just going to save my dad. That there is something there. And like, no, we're not even going to talk about the bad guy.
Yeah.
But I think because this movie's so bloated and overstuffed, it's like, well, they could have just written this movie and made him the bad guy, whoever killed his mom.
Yeah, keep it more self-contained.
And it sounds like in the Flashpoint comic, that's like what happens.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they didn't do that. Yeah, that's the event.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so all that happens.
Okay.
And Flash gets really upset thinking about it.
And then
and he kind of like goes back in time to when the babies were falling. His head pops out into the clouds.
So he accidentally goes back in time.
Yeah.
And discovers that he can do it. He can do it. And
it's just so when that happened, I was like, I can't believe they're showing the babies again.
I know.
Like they're doubling down on the babies. Is this the best movie ever made?
No. So he discovers that, and then we get Bruce again, who he's talking to like in an alley. And oh my gosh, he is so bad. I hate it.
I think the highlight here is Ben Affleck was able to get out of bed that day. He was able to stop at Dunkin' and get. Well, I think he must have had decaf that day. They were able to get probably one line.
The Sox probably
out
lost
of him
the night before, which shows for his sleepy bad performance. He's not even whatever. I don't need to talk anymore.
He's not trying at all. And you know what? I don't think he should.
So they did
I don't
one
think
of
he
the
needs to.
craziest things in the scene that's very subtle, but not subtle. It's actually not subtle.
Yeah.
As he's talking, there is a neon sign behind him, flickering profusely. Just constant flickering. And it's like, we get it. You're foreshadowing. We get it. Turn the sign off. Because it's foreshadowing those dumb time planets later into the movie.
What? Really?
Yes, there's this giant sign right over his shoulder just flickering and flickering and flickering. And it's like, it's so distracting.
What does that have to do with time planets?
Do you know what I'm talking about with time planets? That's when we get all the cameos.
Yeah. Did it look like them or something?
It is a planet.
Oh, I didn't. You didn't say that part.
The neon sign is a planet.
I
and it's
honestly didn't notice the sign.
I don't know how you couldn't have. I'm actually a little upset that you didn't notice. And it's when Bruce is like, you can't mess with time.
Oh, yeah.
Just a big woof.
Yeah.
So he tells Barry, you can't mess with time or time will mess with you. That might be an exact quote.
Yeah.
Or pretty close to it. And then Barry is like, okay, see ya. I'm going to try it.
Right.
Which... This movie is so. I mean, it's not, but again, it kind of is. This is our Spider-Man character. It's quite similar to, the last Spider-Man movie. What's it called?
No Way Home.
No Way Home, where it, not exactly, but it's like in a way, Peter's like, what can I do to fix this? Thing that has happened.
Yeah.
Oh, I know someone that can help me fix it.
Right.
And it goes wrong. Same thing. I mean, this is kind of just a classic thing. But
yeah.
Barry's like, I figured out that I can maybe fix this. I'm going to do it.
Right.
And time stuff, multiverse stuff never works, is what we've learned.
Right.
So he does it anyway. The sequence of him going back in time, and then he's in like it's like a Coliseum looking time dial. And it is bad.
It's crazy. I mean, these are, so I kind of said PlayStation 2. These are actually like PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2.
Do you think they were going
lifeless eyes, everything?
Do you think that they were going for like time as a circle?
I
kind of.
I guess.
Illustration?
I guess. But what was odd to me was they chose to make really bad models instead of just like rotoscoping out the background of actors and making like a kaleidoscope effect.
Yeah.
Which they did in like Doctor Strange. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
So instead he's traveling back and you're seeing like Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot, Henry Cavill.
His parents.
And it is like, I cannot believe that someone said yes to this.
Yeah.
Nothing could have prepared me for how bad this movie was going to look.
Yeah.
And guess what? People for 6 months have been saying how bad this movie looks.
Yeah.
And I'm still just like, not 6 months, 4 or whatever, but
bad.
I just couldn't even believe it. Now, I want to talk about like a thing about this movie.
Okay, wait, hold on. Can I just say one more thing?
Yes, please.
It's just kind of inherently silly, him running. And I get it's hard to make him not look dumb.
Yeah.
But him running backwards, dude.
Yeah.
I know that's what he does. That's how he goes back in time. But it looks dumb. It is so lame.
This is what the VFX guys were saying. Is they're like it's weird because he's going slow, but everything else is fast, and they're like that's a good job and that's a cool thing in theory, and it makes sense in theory, but they said you have to. But at the end of the day, like, you should go with what looks good because it doesn't look good. And it looks really bad. And they're like, we get it that they're like maybe trying to go for like speed skating, but it kind of also doesn't really look like that. Very bad.
Yeah.
And I feel like I feel like it looked a lot better in the previous movies.
I don't remember.
Where Flash like runs around.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, the thing I kind of wanted to talk about is this time travel trope, which is reliving events. And then oftentimes you get to a point where then you go back and you relive even some more events that just happened again. As much as I have in the past enjoyed that, Back to the Future 2, Prisoner of Azkaban, elements of Endgame, I think we kind of need to be done with it.
I agree. Well, I think we need to put multiverses to bed. I think we've explored it. Yeah. And I know kind of the thing about them is they can never there's no end to exploring them. But I'm ready for this phase to be over.
Yeah.
I'm no longer curious about what's in other universes.
Yeah, me neither. But yeah, I'm just a little tired of the trope because when we got to the end of the movie, Batman dies. And then it's like, oh, let's go back in time. And then they go, and then it's like this montage.
Batman dies? What are you talking about?
At the end of this movie.
Oh, Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they go through this montage thing of like traveling back in time, and it's like, oh, like I get it. I know. Like, I think someone needs to write, because I think time travel is infinitely exciting and an interesting idea, but someone needs to come up with a story that's time travel where they're not redoing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm realizing now that this movie actually had the opportunity to do it because it posits that when you time travel, you create a new universe.
Mm-hmm.
Or not necessarily create it, you join one. And I am now realizing that the entire ending of this movie and everything that motivates the Flash bad doesn't make any sense because they keep traveling back to the same time, which they've never had the opportunity to do in the rest of the movie. So the entire last act doesn't work.
What?
So when he travels back in time, he splits multiverses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't actually travel on a linear time space. They make that clear. So then at the end
did it no longer become linear when he changed something? Or was it him simply being there already changed it?
That I'm not sure.
Okay.
Because I guess we're talking theoretically at this point. But by the rules of this movie, they said it's like the spaghetti, where it's like you get crossed and you jump into the wrong one and stuff. So when Bad Flash, who becomes Bad Flash, decides, hey, I'm going to go back and save Batman who just died. He goes back. That means he would have traveled to a different multiverse at that point because you don't travel back. They're like not traveling back to the same one when they travel back in time. So he keeps trying to travel back into time and fix that one. But every time in the rest of the movie, when they travel back in time, they go to a different multiverse.
How many times do they travel back in time?
I guess just the once.
I like to think, I don't know. I think he can travel back to the same place every time, but he's creating something new every time because it's not working. And even if it did work.
Yeah. I guess this movie could have had the opportunity where it's like he's technically not time traveling. He's going to multiverses, which is what they kind of set up. And then it wouldn't be the repeating thing.
I think he's not going to multiverses. He's creating them.
Well, either way, yeah.
Like he's going to the same starting point every time.
Right.
Which means he is time traveling.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's how it makes sense in my brain.
Yeah,
what movie doesn't do this stuff is Looper.
No, it doesn't. No, yeah.
That's why I'm so good and refreshing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard it's not like it wouldn't work.
Right. It's like a paradox at the end.
But who cares?
Well, and I mean, that's intentional. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, you get to the end and then the kid kills himself or something like.
Huh?
No. What happens at the end?
Well, he saves the kid.
He saves the kid.
I don't remember. It's been so long since I've seen it.
Somebody dies, and the way that they die means that like they could have never come back in the first place, or something like that.
Gordon-Levitt die,
right?
And if he died young, then none of that stuff happened when he was older.
Yeah. So it's a paradox, but I mean that doesn't mean
Time travel is mind f.
It is, yes. So
okay, so
Barry goes
back in time.
He goes through the Hall of Justice League putty men, and then goes back in time. And
he's back as he's like a couple years back.
Yeah.
So he sees his mom. He has dinner with his family, his parents. I gotta say, it was funny. So they're eating dinner.
Actually, first he goes way back, and he puts the can of spaghetti sauce in her cart because he realizes, okay, if I do that, then that'll just prevent them from ever leaving.
That was something he worked out in his brain. He isn't doing something too major.
Yeah,
but he is doing a butterfly effect.
That I thought was like clever. I like that. Yeah.
So he puts the extra can of tomato sauce in there.
Yeah, the more we're talking about it, my whole thing that this last act doesn't work is wrong. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You were right.
So, and then he goes
to he goes to where he thinks is his present.
That's what it is. That's how he gets.
And it's all changed.
That's when he's entered a multiverse. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so but his mom is alive. He's having dinner with them. And I gotta say, it was funny when he looked out the window and he saw himself like trancing down the street and kicked a garbage can.
Yeah, that
was
like singing.
Funny. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
It really worked for me. He like jumped over the fence. I loved it.
Yeah. And they said something like, "Oh, you're early to dinner. What the heck?"
Yeah.
And
they're like, "You're from school, college."
And blah, fish blah. Out of water stuff like that's always fun.
Yeah.
Where it's like, "Oh yeah, I totally go to that school university that we talked about, right?"
Exactly. Yeah.
School thing.
So he didn't go back to his present as well as created a multiverse, or is in a multiverse, a different universe.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sees himself. They go up to his bedroom, and then this is a scene where they're like talking about all of it and figuring it out. This is when it's dropped the first little nugget of who plays Marty McFly.
Eric Stoltz.
So he says it's like Eric Stoltz in Back to the Future, and he's like, no, it's Michael J. So that has a pretty good payoff.
That's a great joke.
I gotta say it's great.
I'm giving him the credit on that.
Yeah, so that's dropped first, and then this is just bananas what's happening. So they're talking about logistics of what this all means and the implications.
Yeah, and Jordan and I had to pause it and have a discussion.
Yeah,
after this shot.
We have been doing same actors in a shot for years, decades.
Yeah, there's a movie that you pointed out called Parent Trap that came out before the 2000s.
With Lindsay Lohan.
They do it perfectly. And you watched it like last year.
Yeah.
No issues.
No issues, made me cry.
There's a movie called Social Network, which by my memory is maybe the first time, or maybe the first time it was really accepted and done well, where an actor was digitally
was he digital?
Actors.
What do you mean by that?
Well, so Armie Hammer is the Winklevoss twins.
Yeah.
And so they'd run the scene, as Winklevoss 1 and him and a stand-in, and then they'd run the scene with him as the other twin and a stand-in, and then they would combine the takes and use digital stuff to,
so how'd they do it with Lindsay Lohan?
They'd put the head on, the other one. I would imagine it'd be interesting to rewatch that, because I'd imagine a lot of it is, like split screen.
That's what I think.
But they also do the handshake thing. That's them
it's crazy,
showing off.
For a long time in my life, I thought that she was a twin.
Yeah.
I think a lot of kids did.
Because it's so not showy in a way, it's maybe like the best use of it ever.
Oh, it's so good. So, and then another movie that does it really well is Enemy.
Yep.
And as far as I know, from what I've seen, it's a tennis ball and a stick in that movie.
Okay.
Maybe not for everything, but I think that a lot of it was just a tennis ball and a stick.
Well, in this movie, they have an actor that looks a lot like Ezra. stand-in, and I'm sure they're doing like the Social Network thing, but
it's crazy. It's just so there. I feel like in this shot particularly, the real Ezra walks around the other one, and I feel like that was supposed to be a flashy shot.
Yeah,
because he walks around.
Yeah,
through the split screen, through whatever thing that they've created, and the other Barry is not real. And it shows, and it's like every time it was a CGI Barry, we were like, no.
It's this soulless, scary thing.
Yeah, it was bad.
What I just couldn't wrap my head around is, I would think that what we would notice is really choppy, like at the neckline, where you'd see, okay, it's a real face, but it's like proportion wrong or something like that. But no, it's like a totally CG face. And we're not there yet. We're still not there yet with totally CG faces, human faces.
Do you think in a way, it's like it came down to time?
Oh, definitely.
More than anything?
Yeah, but it's weird to me that it's not just a weird comp. Because I'm sure Ezra ran the takes.
But that's what I think is maybe they didn't.
Yeah, I guess maybe not.
It got to a point where I really don't think that they did.
Well, there was a lot of scenes in this that I thought, I don't remember the timeline, and it sounds like I'm saying a joke, but I'm thinking maybe Ezra is like spending the night in jail when they need to do this thing, or they're hiding out on their compound or whatever. I did have that thought where maybe they weren't available for these rounds of reshoots. So
that's how it feels.
And it made me, there was one line in particular, I don't remember where it was, but I genuinely thought Ezra did not do that line. That was probably AI, because we don't have rules yet for the actors on AI.
Yeah.
And they probably just programmed Ezra Miller saying these lines because they're over there shooting the secrets of Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Anyway,
perplexing.
It's crazy. And so the stuff between them, I think if I divorce myself from how much I dislike Ezra Miller, a lot of it actually is fun banter between the two. But I've just got to a point where I can hardly watch Ezra do anything on screen.
So to watch two.
So to watch two is like, oh, very cool. This is great.
I unfortunately just think it's poorly casted because I just don't find them very charismatic.
Yeah.
So some
it's hard to be a superhero.
It is. Some things just kind of come off as whiny.
Oh yeah.
To me, and that's unfortunate because there are movies that Ezra's in that I like their performance a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think they're a bad actor. Maybe now they're a bad actor.
Yeah.
Because of how they've grown up or something. I don't know.
Well, you and I were kind of talking about how this was just the absolute wrong move to make.
Yeah.
There's just sometimes when actors go, okay, now I'm going to make the big move. And I think Ezra was always supposed to and should have been
the indie
guy.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just not smart to have taken this jump, because
I don't know enough about Flash to know who would be a good casting.
Well, I know people love the Flash from the show,
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's but I think it was all wrong, and I think the approach. Again, I'm not familiar with Flash, so maybe I'm wrong here, but I think the approach to the character and all the, the quote weird things and the weird ways he acts, all of those things they did with that character, I just think it wasn't.
Well, I feel like
it was wrong from the get-go.
They never in the other movies established well why he would be socially awkward. From my memory.
Yeah.
Right? Do you remember?
No, they don't.
Okay, yeah, because I feel like that's something that's severely lacking.
Yeah.
And they barely, they barely touch on it in this movie. Like when he's a kid, he's doing math homework, and it's like, what's the answer to this? And he's like, it's could be all of these answers because he's a savant, I guess. And
I didn't get that, like what they were getting at in that scene.
I think that that Barry's the kind of person that's so literal. And it's like, and smart, just so smart.
Okay.
I don't know.
So
I
a
almost
math
feel
problem
like,
that has a definite answer?
well, I almost feel like they're trying to make
What?
this a character that's on the spectrum,
I definitely think they're trying to do
and they're
that.
doing a very like
That's
poor,
bad representation for sure.
disrespectful job of it.
I think so, yeah.
So it's a mess.
Yeah. And again, I think the comedic tone is just off. You know.
So Barry tells younger Barry, we got to make sure that you get your powers tonight. He figures it out. Oh my gosh, tonight's the night that you get it. But there've been a tiny few things sprinkled throughout where it's like, this isn't the same Barry. It's a different Barry. But they go to the research center where he's interning, of course, but he's not.
Yeah.
And we both agreed that the effect of him going through
phasing through
stuff looks cool.
I think that's cool. I
even liked the close-up thing to show how it worked.
Yeah.
I liked that.
No, that's I think that totally works.
So they do that. I do think some of the stuff is funny here. Some of the jokes.
Yeah.
But they get to the lab, they open the window.
Imagine if this was like Griffin Newman though or something.
Oh, sure.
It'd be so much funnier.
Yeah. The window is open to let the lightning come through. That's going to go through all these chemicals and electrocute them. When they were doing it, I'm like, this is how it happens?
I know, me too. I was kind of like, maybe just skip the origin thing. But then again, to give them points, it's like, oh, that's kind of clever that they decided to show the origin in a way of you're creating someone when someone's already been the hero. That is kind of a clever way to show the origin.
Sure.
So I'll give them points on that, actually.
So they create it.
And we are about to say something that was actually pretty dang funny.
Okay, so they create it. We create the lightning bolt through the chemicals.
Spits a tooth into the other
Well,
Flash.
it goes through our Barry, through Barry to this Barry.
Uh-huh.
And because of this, our Barry loses his powers and the other one gains them.
And when he tries to run, that was very funny.
That was funny.
Because the powers are gone and the run looks stupid.
Yeah.
You know, that was good.
And so the new Barry has the powers.
Yeah.
And I gotta, maybe you just literally just said this, but I really like this dynamic. Where
oh yeah. I didn't say this.
Okay, I do really like this dynamic of our main character. You know, his challenge is he has lost his powers. What is he gonna do now? And he's got to work with this nincompoop.
Yeah.
Who is just like going through all the motions that he did because it's exciting to have powers.
Yeah.
And he's immature.
Yeah.
I like that. Great dynamic. The movie's not good, but these are some notes from the story that I like that I feel like I'm sure it's in the comic.
Like, you know, like this whole element, it's like, oh, well, maybe this is what the guys who made Game Night were writing, was this like kind of goofball, screwball comedy where one has powers, one doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when it's directed by good directors and and they write the whole screenplay, maybe it's actually awesome.
Yeah.
You know?
So he gives him his ring to put on the suit. Well, before that, he's running around. They go back to his apartment. He's running around and he burns the clothes off of himself. That kind of stuff. I like those touches. The calorie thing still bugs me for some reason.
I don't get that. The calorie thing is good.
It's not the calorie counter. No. It is the calorie counter. Him having to eat, great. I like that. It's his suit telling him that he needs to eat.
I like that. That makes sense.
I don't know why.
It's like a car telling you that it's empty.
But I did not think we would get so much butt.
A lot of Ezra butt.
A lot of butt.
Which I don't think anyone in the entire universe.
No.
Oh, you know what? I don't think anyone in the entire multiverse is asking for.
Bada bing. So, and I did think it was funny when he came back naked, and then he's back in the apartment, and then he phases below himself.
Yeah.
Comes back. That all worked for me, I have to say.
Yeah.
And I thought it was funny that our Barry just looks off through the window and sees a billowing smoke of fire.
Yeah.
And just knows, like, and time to him had only been like 10 seconds later.
Right.
That all was funny to me. It worked.
Yeah.
So where are we at now?
So, then they give him the molecule suit, which it's kind of a clever and fun idea, and it looks goofy, but I feel like that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
The suit like pops out of the ring and gets big, and you're supposed to change in time, but the one Barry didn't know, and so it just lazily falls on the ground and looks really pathetic.
Yeah.
Kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then this is actually when they talk about the Eric Stoltz.
Yeah, so they go back to his apartment. And he has all these roommates.
Well, they talk about it at the park there for the first time.
Oh, okay.
And he's going,
oh, okay.
It's Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
And they're like, the guy from, I don't remember what they say, but
yeah.
Anyway, then they go back to the apartment.
His roommates are those bullies.
Yeah.
They talk about Eric Stoltz more, and the guy has a tattoo of him as Marty McFly on him, and that all worked for me.
Yeah.
And what do they determine? I mean, they basically determine here we got to go talk to your Batman. Your Batman would know what to do, right? Because that's who I would go to.
Well, now they're gonna look for the Justice League.
Yeah.
And so
surely they have it.
Yeah, and he calls Aquaman's dad for a bad cameo there. And tries to see about little old what is Aquaman's name? I forgot.
Aquaman. Brian.
It's kind of a funny name.
Arthur
Curry.
Okay.
That's kind of a cool name. Anyway,
well, it's funny because the dad is not it is New Zealand.
Yeah.
And Jason Momoa
is like Polynesian.
Is Polynesian.
Of some, I don't know where in Polynesia, but
and his name's Arthur because Nicole Kidman is his mom, and she's the one who's from Atlantis.
Right, and only recently in comics is it a Pacific Islander Aquaman?
Is his name still Arthur?
I think so.
Okay.
And I can't remember if it was Zack Snyder's idea to make it Polynesian and then the comics followed suit or the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
If it was, that's a great idea, Zach, and you got to get credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
We got to give this white guy credit for this idea.
It was not this white guy. It's probably some other one.
But
okay, but then they go to Wayne
anyway.
Manor.
There's no. Well, hang on 1 second. There's no like metahumans as they call them in this universe.
What does that mean?
So there's no other like superheroes.
Why do they call them metahumans?
I don't know.
Is that what a superhero is?
That's what he said.
Nah.
In the movie.
No, thank you.
You
can't say that you have powers that much and you call them metahumans.
Yeah, no. So he can't find Cyborg, can't find Wonder Woman, etc.
Like they keep bringing up Cyborg, like we all really know who that is.
I know. Well, we all watched the Justice League and saw the extra 18 hours where he's running around on the football stadium. So then Zod is making his attack.
Okay.
Now, I have a few choice things to say about this. This universe is so desperate to make the Zod attack the Avengers Loki attack.
Sure.
And the Avengers Loki attack resonated. It makes sense that it's something that they reference. It was a slam dunk. People loved it. People love that movie.
Why did Loki come?
Huh?
What was Loki wanting originally? Just power?
Well, I know he had one of the stones.
But was he just trying to get power?
Maybe.
It's just been so long.
Yeah, I don't remember, though.
Everything was more simple back then. He probably just wanted power.
It might have been. But that was a triumphant moment. And now they reference Endgame all the time. And, I think sometimes maybe they reference those events too much in Marvel now. It's like, let's move forward a little bit. But it's like they have the cachet to do it. But this universe, they keep being like, remember that General Zod thing? And you're like, oh, brother. No.
Michael Shannon doesn't even remember it. I'm not convinced he's in this movie.
I found out he was.
Okay.
Because he talked about how being in the movie this time, it's like, I'm just there to be a force, and it wasn't really that interesting to be in this movie.
You don't say.
Because it's
most of him was CGI'd, including his face, for real.
Yeah, it was. We actually thought that maybe he was not ever on set, and they just like reused footage.
Yeah.
But so then I have another qualm with this, which is then they go, okay, let's go find Bruce Wayne. He's Batman. And there is a Batman in this universe. And it is fun that everyone's like, nobody knows who he is. They're kind of like, but he's like, oh, I'm friends with him. I know. So they go up to Wayne Manor and it looks a little bit different. And they go inside and it looks a lot like it did in 1989. And then
Dance starts playing.
They get attacked by this gray-haired man. And since we all saw the trailers where they shoved it down our throats that Michael Keaton was in this, it's not surprising. It's not exciting. You're just like...
I was hoping it was going to be a fun Alfred cameo.
Yeah. That guy's been dead for a long time.
Well, I don't remember who Alfred was in that,
Yeah.
so I just mean some other person.
Right. But then they fight, and then it's like, I'm Bruce Wayne, and then,
I'm Bruce Wayne.
Barry's like, what? You're not Bruce Wayne. And then they discuss the spaghetti thing. Now, here's what I don't like. This is Michael Keaton's universe, and maybe it's an alternate universe to the Tim Burton movies, whatever. I'm just saying it's presented to us as, you have the 4 Batman movies, and then this happens to Batman. So Batman and Batman Returns are movies that are built upon Tim Burton's crazy, creepy, kooky, gothic mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you consider the Kilmer and Clooney, which are considered part of that series, just different actors playing them, those are the Schumacher, crazy, beautiful-looking, insane movies.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're telling me that bland Zod, who has nothing interesting about him, is attacking on this world, and and they have a battle on a sand area with no gargoyles anywhere to be seen. I'm telling you, it doesn't make sense that he lives in this world. And so I think it's a disservice to the Batman 89.
And you brought up a funny thing where it does kind of feel like, okay, so if this is Michael Keaton Batman, why does Michael Shannon have to be Zod? Why can't we just get some other person to play
I
him?
thought you said that, but...
No, I think you said that.
Or why can't it just be a different... why can't it be Reverse Flash, apparently?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, and then here's this element. So in the trailer, they had played this scene, and I think this is what you attached to it, where there's a heart-to-heart between Flash and Batman, where Flash says, hey, I know I messed things up, but if you could have saved your parents, would you do it?
Yeah.
And then Batman's like, yeah, and okay, I'll help you. And that's it. And I feel like that is the heart of the movie, and that's why you bring a Batman into it. And making it Michael Keaton, I don't know that it has to be him, but that makes it fun and exciting. And if you made that the heart of the movie, saving parents, and gave Batman kind of anything to do besides gadgets, maybe a character arc, for example. And
I think his character arc just wasn't done well as they got him back in the game. Seriously, because he was a recluse in this, and then they solicit his help. He's like, I'll get you guys here, and then I'm done. But he continues to help them. They save Supergirl, and then he's helping. Then the whole heart-to-heart with Barry, and then he's like, okay, let's finish this because the Zod thing's a real problem. And then, because then there's even that little tiny scene after their first fight where he's sewing himself. He's giving himself stitches, and he looks in the mirror, kind of satisfied, they kind of feel good.
Yeah,
to be back in the game.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I think that's it.
Yeah. It's just that to me, it's so obviously what the entire movie should be about. Otherwise, there should not be a Batman team up.
Yeah.
That is the point of having him. But instead, which is what this movie continually does, is they choose Flash over substance. I didn't mean to do a pun there, but they choose to go, remember Michael Keaton? How cool is that? And you go, okay, what's the purpose of that, though?
Yeah.
And then it's no, we just were able to get him to sign it because we paid him money and he's here. Are you excited? Not really.
Yeah.
Because I think about all the cameos in this movie, and now this is a point I was saving for later, and then I think about No Way Home, a movie that I really love, and you can accuse it of being, pedantic and fan service and all that stuff, but you get Tobey Maguire back, you get Andrew Garfield back, and they actually... Yeah, right.
You get Jamie.
Right, yes, you get all of those guys back. I'm just talking specifically Spider-Man. You get them back, and they actually have stuff that they do.
Yeah.
And they affect the plot, and there's certain things, character beats that they have, and it was you really got your money's worth.
Mm-hmm.
And they had hearts to heart and everything. And in this movie, it's hey, Christopher Reeve, Superman, dialogue? No. Which I'm glad they didn't, by the way. We'll get more into that. Nicolas Cage, Superman, because of that movie that never happened. Remember?
Why is he fighting a spider?
Because that was going to be in that movie.
Oh.
But But it's like that's it.
Yeah.
Like, look. All it is look.
Mhm.
It's there's no actual.
It's like, look what almost was, or what had been.
Right.
And now come back to this movie that you're not enjoying.
Right, and there's just no actual substance to it. Whereas the No Way Home stuff, I do think there's substance, even if you don't like it.
Yes, and then all of that stuff poses, which, I mean, let's just get into it now, because why not?
Yeah.
Did Nicolas Cage have to allow them to use his likeness? Or not, because he never was a Superman. So it's not, like, I'm sure it sounded like that movie was pretty dang close to getting made. Like he had been
Kevin Smith
he had been fitted
directed.
for a what?
Yeah, Kevin Smith directed.
Ooh.
And
but anyway,
Nicolas Cage fighting a giant
so
spider.
got to a point of him. Why does everything it feels like Kevin Smith does is a joke?
I don't know.
Because I feel like anything I've seen from him is a joke.
Well, I think that's maybe a little more recent.
Okay. Anyway, like Nicolas Cage signed contracts.
Yeah, there's footage. There's actually a documentary about what happened to the movie.
Yeah.
Because it was.
Do those, like, whatever he signed on those contracts, was there a clause that said Warner Brothers could use his likeness as Superman, or they can keep his fitting measurements as Superman?
That seems so odd to me because
perpetuity.
Yeah, because like, how could they have had like the like foresight to know that we'd live in a world where they'd make movies where you can just like show a picture of someone and people get excited?
Yeah.
But maybe
it's just one of those things where it's like, I hope he got paid.
Well, and I think this is like what part of the strike is about, because you had I know hopefully by now it's resolved and the actors got everything and more, but like you had I had read that maybe it was for Secret Invasion or one of the Marvel shows. No, it was not that. It was the first Marvel show, WandaVision.
Mm-hmm.
They told extras, and you have no power when you're an extra. So they said, like, go into that tent. They were full body scanned and then, like, walked into the next room and, like, no one knows why. And they find out later, like, Disney, like, owns their body scans and can use it, you know, in, like, any Marvel project, whatever. And guess what? Do they get paid for that likeness? Nope, not a cent.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would imagine that even an actor like Nicolas Cage, this thing, it's probably like, hey, we put you in this movie. How flattering is that? You know, but maybe he has like a likeness thing or whatever. You know, maybe when you're A+.
I don't think that guy's got. I think that guy's like, give me money any way you can, because he's always in need of it.
Right. But I think, you know, to talk about the Christopher Reeves one, first of all, I think it's a spit in the face, and it's just disgusting to me that they put that in the movie. And I'm not even like a big Superman fan, like of those movies, you know, but it just feels like is nothing sacred.
Yeah.
Like, and it seems pretty clear and evident that if this man was alive now, he would not okay this.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't want like a lifeless CGI look thing of him up there. So I just think it's really tasteless. You know, with the Spider-Man thing, it was like Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire signed on to be in those movies, and they got to act in them.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, oh, we're just going to, you know.
Well, clearly no one wanted it because no one saw this movie.
It's true, yeah, the movie bombed.
Yeah.
And then they show, like, you know, a flash from, like, an old serialized TV show and a shot of Adam West and another like old TV show, and it's like, well, first of all, I mean, Adam West, yes, but the others, it's like, who cares about those? Nobody watches those anymore. Like, what? Why is that a reference? Why are you not putting like the Flash TV show guy in here because people love him?
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I know. The way it was shown too was very confusing.
Oh yeah, it was one of the worst sequences maybe ever filmed.
Yeah.
Or created, not filmed.
Yeah.
But yeah, they meet Bruce Wayne.
They get him to help him. They're taking him to where Superman is supposed to be, and I like this. It's just interesting where Superman is not in Kansas. Superman is in control of the Soviets. Like is prisoner.
Yeah.
Well, they're not the Soviets anymore. Russia.
Yeah. A quick pause. I just want to say two things, and then we'll get back to that scene. I did write down Michael Keaton is so good. It is so crazy how the movie's getting like kind of stale, and then he just shows up, and you're like, it's already more watchable.
Yeah, he's good.
He's just a pro. And then the second thing is, there's a scene where they talk about Superman in that same sequence, and Michael Keaton goes, Superman, isn't that a little on the nose? And they go, well, your name's Batman. Enough with this in superhero movies, okay? Stop apologizing for their names
your
and
own
stuff.
Characters.
I'm done with this.
Yeah.
Okay? We like these things. Just be confident.
Don't make me feel like an idiot for reading it. I'm speaking for you.
Yeah, no, and also it's just dumb that a guy who ran around with bats and fights a penguin would think Superman is a bad name for a... you know what I mean? It's just a fan Reddit thread that the screenwriter wrote and was like, well, let's put that joke in there. I hate it. I'm done.
So they go to Mother Russia, and
yes.
They bust out. They go to where Superman's supposed to be, and it's a woman.
A super girl, perhaps.
A suit that's there. Take this emaciated woman. And get her away from her holding cell, which of course
nice
is
of them
kryptonite.
To leave the suit in there with her.
Yeah. Oh, so nice. And then because she's away from kryptonite, she gets powerful again.
Yeah.
She takes care of business.
Barry pukes a bunch.
Yeah, because the other Barry moved him.
Too fast.
I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it was kind of funny.
And bust Supergirl out, and then realize this is their Superman.
Yeah.
Is the Supergirl. And they find out that, okay, so I was a little confused about this. She was sent from Krypton to follow the baby.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Krypton was being destroyed. So
well, we know that. We've all seen Man of Steel. But is she supposed to protect the baby or something?
I think so.
Or she was also maybe sent off of Krypton to also be saved.
I think it was that.
And they got separated.
Yeah.
That's what it is. They got weird stuff with babies in this movie because much later on, when she's fighting Zod, and she's like, "What happened to him? What happened to whatever his name is?"
We killed the baby.
The infant did not survive,
yeah.
and it's like, why are we killing babies in this movie? I don't like it.
Well, at least they didn't put a baby in a microwave. Wait a second.
Yeah. So now they kind of have their own little disjointed,
little Justice League of their own,
and they're gonna try again. I'm just kind of jumping around, but they're gonna try again to get our Barry's powers back.
Yeah.
So it's just so funny that they had to set up shelves with chemicals in it.
Yeah.
to have the lightning shoot through again. I don't know why, it was just funny. They're creating an accident.
Right.
And Supergirl helps.
Yeah, she lifts him all the way up into the sky, and a flash of lightning gets him, and then set him down, and he's got the powers back.
Yeah.
And so now they can go and fight Zod.
Yeah.
And so they do, and it is nonsensical. One of the most nonsensical CG battles ever put to film.
Yep.
But before they do that, and we talked about this on an episode with Jeremy and Dan Eden, I think it was Blade Trinity. They do this thing where one time in Batman 1989, the Joker is attacking Vicky Vale, and Bruce Wayne says, "You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts." He says it one time. Doesn't say it in Batman Returns. Doesn't say it in the rest of the Batmans. Seems like maybe it was one of those kind of things.
I can't remember.
But it's a famous catchphrase to us. To the character, it makes no sense that he would go around saying that all the time. And so in this movie, he says it, of course, because he's got to say the line. And it's just there for people to cheer in the audience. And they're kind of like, "Okay, so you in, Batman?" And he goes, "You want to get nuts? Pause. Let's get nuts." What does that have to do with getting in?
I don't know. And it didn't put any butts in seats.
And he remembered that for 40 years?
He's just been waiting to say it.
It's crazy.
Just when he thought that he was out.
They pulled me back in. So then they have this fight, and then here's something else I got to talk about. Andy Muschietti. I don't think he's very good at needle drops, because in this movie, they
they
needle
play
drop
Salute Your Solution
by the Raconteurs.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't. I love the song. I love Jack White. I'm happy to hear it, and I hope that they got paid. Well, I know they got paid, but I'm just saying, like, that's not the issue there. But there's an art to needle drops, and I bring this up because remember in It Chapter 2, Eddie goes down into the pharmacy area and he gets puked on by an it demon for like 2 seconds, and it plays some song about angels, which also is
you
like,
are my angel. The like, yeah, so that,
and that's about all it plays, and then it cuts away.
Yeah.
And it was like, what? And it wasn't like a character beat. It was just a weird needle drop that had nothing to do with the movie. See James Gunn, see
is that
Martin
his
Scorsese.
job though, or is that the music supervisor's job?
It's both, because someone like Martin Scorsese, James Gunn, and Edgar Wright
and Quentin
Tarantino, masters of the needle drop, and guess what? They are all very, very involved with that process.
Yeah.
I once saw a thing, it was Patrick Willems' video on needle drops, and he talked about how, like, I think it was in one of the early Scorsese movies, Mean Streets, I think, and like talking to them about how we were going to introduce Robert De Niro and how to do it, and then they do that Rolling Stones song. I can't remember which one it is, but it's so epic. Like, you have to be intentional about these things. You don't just throw on a random rock song.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it's a rock song that's like 15 years old now, so it's random. And it's not even
not classic.
Yeah, it's classic to us.
You and me.
Yeah, but it's just a random thing. Like, you would think they'd pick either like Led Zeppelin or something like so of the moment now. Post Malone or something like that.
Okay.
If it's not going to fit with the movie, you may as well try and have something that's like popular right now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So they're like, what's funny too is they're fighting these Kryptonians, and they establish like no one can kill them but Supergirl.
Yeah.
Because they're too powerful. Okay. They're still going to fight them though.
Sure.
And I that stuff's tough for me.
Yeah.
So it's like, so all this makes no sense, especially when Barry's going to go back in time over and over and over again to try and save Batman.
Yeah.
And there's like, why does he just keep fighting?
I don't know.
Apparently he can't kill any of them.
I don't know.
Why did they make him invincible?
I don't know.
They could have changed that.
Maybe you don't make Zod a Superman villain, the villain of your Flash movie.
Yeah.
Maybe make Reverse Flash that seems like that's the movie.
Yeah.
I also feel like they shot themselves in the foot with basically saying, hey, let's make a Spider-Man movie, and it's Spider-Man No Way Home first. It's like, why don't you have a Spider-Man movie that is like a villain that we're familiar with, and we get a focus on Peter Parker Spider-Man, instead of like starting at like the season finale.
I know, it's confusing. So
because it's like we actually have not been given a big screen story of Flash, and then you give us one where there's two Flashes, there's a Supergirl, and then Batman's in it as a coast. It's like, just make a movie where he has to run fast to solve a problem.
Yeah.
That's the movie I want to see.
Yeah.
Of the Flash.
Yeah, it's a mess. And so apparently Zod is trying to get Supergirl because her DNA makes them even more powerful.
It's the Codex, duh. So they can recreate the Krypton race. You have to remember it from Man of Steel, and that's the only reason I remembered it.
Get out.
Yeah.
So basically nothing goes well. They lose.
Yeah.
And they're back into the Coliseum of Time.
The Coliseum of Nightmares, let me tell you.
Both berries. And
it was very funny on the VFX thing. There's one random shot, and it's a crash test dummy.
Yeah.
In the VFX thing of Time, and they were all like, that's the best looking thing in this whole shot.
That's funny.
Because there was no face on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
So the new Barry is like, we can just go back in time just like you did and fix this thing. So he's going back in time again and again. Our Barry can't stop him. And the more this Barry is going back in time, he's more accumulating wounds and like things stabbed through him, essentially. And they're arguing about it. Barry's telling him that nothing can be done. Basically, like, yeah, they're creating all these universes, all these multiverses, but none of them. Our Barry basically learns, oh, okay, so Batman dies in every scenario, and Supergirl.
Yeah.
That means that my mom dying in mine will happen every time. Like, he can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Which they take back later.
I know. I can't believe that.
But that's basically what he learns.
Yeah.
And he's trying to convince our Barry of it, and he can't live with that.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't talk about this. I thought it was very confusing that, so our Barry goes back in time to save his mom.
Yeah.
And he's like hiding this from our Barry, that his mom gets murdered.
Right.
I don't understand why that needs to be kept from him.
No, I don't know.
So so now we're at this scene, and he's like, it's like, so was the new Barry doing this more because of his mom, even though she's not dead? Like, what?
Yeah,
why does he care this much about Batman, who we just met, and Supergirl?
I mean, you're asking questions
and I know
that the screenwriters did
I know
not.
it's his world.
Yeah.
But I'm a little confused by his motivation, I guess. But it results in him becoming this monstrosity.
Yeah, he's like, no one's gonna die. That's his thing.
Yeah, I do like this. I do like this. It's all a mess. It's a big.
I like
mess.
the idea.
Yeah, I like the idea.
Is a good idea.
He's been doing it. For basically eternity.
The only thing that sucks is when he shows up in the Speed Force the first time. I was like, oh, that's Flash.
Oh, we all knew that.
It's like, it's not a reveal or anything.
No, and I think it's fine to know that it's him. Even like I think that, because that could have been a fun flip on the head of like, there's not that. I don't know. I don't really care that I know that.
Yeah.
So if they wanted to make it more obvious, I guess is what I'm saying. But it is Flash. He's been trying to figure this out for lifetimes, and he obviously can't because there is no timeline where this happens. It's almost like, I'm sure they explained it in Loki well, because they have all those fun illustrations, but maybe they explain it well in everything too. Maybe not, but like when timelines intersect, it's because they shared that event.
Yeah.
So it's almost like if you saw it zoomed out, all of these spider webs of time like they all meet at this point, just like they all meet at other points, kind of thing.
I mean, I did like the spaghetti analogy. That was kind of fun, because I was half expecting him to just stop talking about spaghetti and describe a wormhole.
And take a piece of paper and draw a circle and fold it in half.
And then stick a pencil through it.
I can't take another one of those illustrations.
But, yeah. So then there's Bad Flash, and then like all the universes are colliding.
Yeah.
And we get these cameos that just don't serve a purpose, which we already talked about. We get like a Supergirl and Christopher Reeve team up. Wordless. Nicolas Cage, Wordless. All these others. It's infuriating, and it's like it feels like this moment where our culture, like pop culture, has been heading in this direction of just like overload.
This is the ugly beast that we've created.
Yeah, and it's like, this is the zenith, and people rejected it, and now I just feel like most people are now like, you know what, and the fact that people are mellower on Marvel and stuff, it's like people are like, I just need a good story. I don't need you to just show me flashy things. And there's still Across the Spider-Verse in theaters while this is coming out. So people still want to hear and watch these stories. But they're just not going to be like, oh, cool, Wolverine showed up in this one. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I do think that that's going to really help Deadpool 3, that Wolverine's in it. But, why does your alarm keep going off?
It's fine.
Okay. So then Ezra dies like Dark Knight is what I said. I don't know what that means, and I don't think that's right.
Huh?
I think maybe
you said something about...
Oh, yeah, Ezra dies like
Dark Knight.
Like Talia...
Oh.
Talia al Ghul.
Yeah.
In Dark Knight Rises, where it's kind of this like, ugh, and just kind of slump over.
Yeah, it was bad.
When
wow, so this Barry of this timeline dies?
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't remember that. Why does he? Who kills him?
Or maybe Bad One dies.
No, I think it's the other one.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really care. And so then it's like, okay, I need to go back and I need to put the green can of spaghetti away. So Barry does, and he does have what I would think. This is the best scene in the movie because it's actually well done.
Mhm.
It's actually a well done scene where Barry comes out of the Speed Force and sees his mother, and they're able to talk. They have this heart to heart, but she hasn't seen her son as an adult, which threw me off for a second because I got my timelines confused, and I was like, "What? How does she not recognize him?" But
this is beautiful world.
So they have this really actually nice heart to heart and tears and all that, and then takes the can, walks over to the grocery store, looks up, and then it cuts away. And now we're at the appeal, which is in a big...
But he looks at the camera like, interesting.
Yeah.
So then...
I want you to take over because you're the expert here.
And it's like, well, there's no way this guy's getting out of jail at prison. And then they show the security camera footage, and his dad did look up because Barry still decided to change something.
This is what I don't understand.
So this whole thing, he learns not to affect change. And he learned even earlier in the movie, I'll do something small. Like put a can of tomatoes.
That's pretty small.
In her cart. That's the tiny thing and she won't die. So he learns even that can cause terrible damage. No, I guess he didn't learn it enough because he put all of the tomato cans on the top shelf, so his dad had to look up to reach it. Therefore, his face is on the camera. Therefore, it's proven that he did not kill his mom.
Yeah.
Because he was at the grocery store getting a can of tomatoes.
Yeah.
Okay. So he learned nothing.
It's also, I mean, you don't want to think about it too much, but it's sort of funny that he was convicted at all because, like, the son was there and he was a witness. I know he didn't see the event, but it just seems a little crazy that I don't know. I shouldn't think about it.
They had
to
to pin it on someone, Micah.
Yeah. And then he walks out of the courthouse, and none of
it's real. None of this courthouse is real.
Yeah,
it is
all green screen. And I think there's some CGI face.
There are CGI
action.
People in the background. This feels like a Tim and Eric backdrop. I gotta say. And the girl's like,
so happy.
Let's go out on a date sometime. And he looks at her off so happy. And he says words. And Mike and I are howling with laughter because we're like, what did he say?
Yeah.
Did he speak in a different language? Was he singing?
Well, and it's like this. It's like this. And the camera's panning. And he's got the doofiest look on his face going.
And his hair, he's a different haircut, which is totally a reshoot.
Yeah. And he's going. But
this is how I heard it.
Yeah, yours was better. So we rewound it.
He looks like a Tim and Eric, someone on Tim and Eric.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
And we rewound it so many times, and then we eventually turned on the subtitles, and Barry was singing a song that I think his mom was listening to in the very first like flashback.
Yeah.
That was not really given any attention to. Again, Andy, you don't understand music in movies like diegetic or like it soundtrack music. And then he calls Batman, and then Batman pulls up, and it's
oh my
George
gosh, this
Clooney.
made me furious. I was so mad. So this reveals that he's in a different... Okay, wait. Maybe this does actually reveal because he moved the tomato cans to the top shelf.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is...
How would he know that moving to the tomato cans to the top shelf, though, would not kill his mom? Oh, because she
would still die.
She didn't have her extra can.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, he had to leave. Okay.
So, yeah. So then George Clooney is the Batman. But what if him
putting the tomato cans on the top shelf caused this multiverse?
Right.
Right?
No, you shouldn't do it.
I was so bad to see him. Not my George.
Here's the thing. I liked it.
Why?
I think it's a funny joke, and it's just kind of funny because everybody, George Clooney is often maligned as the worst Batman, and he hated it and always is like embarrassed about it. So
he was so good.
It's sort of divorced of like the quality of the movie.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, you know what? That's a funny joke that George Clooney comes out and he played Batman one last time. Like, that's sort of funny to me. Like, I like that joke. It's not in a movie that's better made. I wouldn't want that joke.
Sure.
But in a movie this poorly made, it's like, that's the best joke in the movie. That's like the best. And then there's this weird post-credit scene where he's just hanging out with drunk Aquaman.
And he's like telling him about what just happened, right?
Yeah. It was awful.
Yeah, it was weird.
So that was the Flash.
Movie.
That was the freaking Flash.
Yeah.
I mean,
I had a fun time. I
had a fun time. I would watch it again in my lifetime. I mean, and there's some scenes. I think that baby scene, I'll probably watch that like once a year just to like know it exists. But yeah, it's a good reminder if any of you are artists and listening, like do not let the amount of success, worldly success, be a judger of the quality of your art, because this movie was in theaters, and I can promise you every single song that I've ever released is better than this, and every podcast we've ever released is better than this movie. And so doesn't matter how many listeners we got, because we have done something better than The Flash. And I can say that without ego and pride.
Just fact.
Yep.
Well, thanks for going on that Flash ride with us.
Yeah, Flash Mountain. Yeah, so it is the month of, let me see, loading. It's the month
November.
of December. And next week, we got good old-fashioned Blue Beetle. And then
so blue and so
Beetle. And then the week after that is Aquaman. And then we're done.
Wipe our hands clean of this S.
Yeah. So please go to our Patreon, patreon.com/Micah McCaw, and sign up and even do a free trial and listen to our episode on Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance.
So talk about a fun, bad movie.
You've never seen that one.
Oh.
We haven't watched that one or recorded that one
I'm sure,
yet.
though, talk about a fun, bad movie.
We'll see you next time.